Okay, we're back now. Sorry about that, guys. My name's Max Ringelheim. I'm the founder of Vonvo.com. Just so you know, this conversation's being recorded right now. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys are both okay with it going on YouTube, correct?
Yes. Yes, good.
Great. Okay, and let's just try and keep the conversation, both civil and valuable, and not have any personal attacks on anyone. And we'll get this conversation started. So, let's go. Let's jump right into the conversation. Roger, when it comes to the idea, Roger, of Israel being labeled as an apartheid state, do you support or negate that claim? Roger, are you there?
I'm here. You've been silent for a very long time. Did I hear a question about Israel labelled an apartheid state? I heard that, I think.
Yes. That was
That was his question.
Okay. Was it directed to me, was it?
Yes.
First?
It was directed to you, Roger. Yes.
Okay, the answer is yes. And I've answered this before, so you can direct it to Luke first if you like, and you can take it up from there.
Okay. Luke,
Right, I'm happy to.
Roger, I think there might be an echo on your part. Can you put your headphones back in?
Echoing, yeah, I've got.
Yeah, I can hear a little echo as well.
Okay, I will. Use headphones. Hang on.
Roger, do you hear me now?
Okay, how's that?
Hey, Roger, do you hear me now?
Yep. Yeah, I hear you.
Great. 1 second.
I hear you. I put on headphones.
All right. So, Roger, do you hear me okay now? And Luke, do you hear an echo?
No, I don't really hear an echo now.
All right, great. I
think that's improved things, has it?
I think the echo went away.
Good.
All right. So, Luke, would you mind taking that question first, and we'll let the conversation flow from there.
Yes, that's fine. So I'm the director of Australians United for Israel, which is obviously a support group for Israel in Australia, and I very much reject the insinuation that Israel is an apartheid. I lived in South Africa for 5 years as a youngster, and I saw apartheid collapse in South Africa. So I've seen what real apartheid is like. Israel is not like apartheid South Africa. In Israel, men, women, regardless of their race or creed, have full and equal rights before the law. You have Jewish, Arab, and people of other backgrounds who are ministers in the Israeli government, who are members of the judiciary. Every Israeli citizen, regardless of race, is entitled to vote in the elections. Israel is a truly independent and democratic state in the Middle East, a beacon of light, whereas under apartheid South Africa, only the white minority had real voting rights. Some of the other minorities had some limited rights, but the great majority, the black majority of South Africans did not have the right to vote. People were not allowed to marry people of other races in South Africa. That law does not apply in any way in Israel, and Israel very much has always opposed apartheid, and in 1961 Israel voted in the United Nations against South Africa's policy of apartheid.
Right. So, Roger, what is your response to Luke in that he says, in terms of voting rights, back when he used to live in South Africa, there was no equal voting rights, but then in Israel there is.
Okay, there's huge differences, and apartheid South Africa, why people compare it with apartheid Israel, I will never know. I will never know. There's nothing to be gained by playing this comparison game. Nothing to be gained whatsoever. It's just a weak argument, and it just wastes people's time, and it just goes nowhere. So why they compare it, I have no idea. Now, Luke, you just mentioned in Israel, you can marry anyone you like. Tell me, please, why often do... He's just disappeared.
Yeah.
Why often...
Yeah, go ahead, Roger. He'll come back, I'm sure.
Israelis have to leave Israel and travel to Cyprus to get married? If Luke can answer that question, why can they not get married in Israel? If you're outside the faith, you have to get married outside of Israel. The rabbis will not allow you to have a civil marriage in Israel. You have to go to, and they do it. They go to Cyprus all the time and come back, do it for the weekend. So that's one question I'd like him to ask when he comes back.
Right, he's back inside the room. There must have been a technical glitch. So as soon as he's back in the room, as soon as he loads his video, you can ask him that direct question. Okay, Roger?
I'll just continue on until he comes back.
Okay, great.
I'll just mention again when he comes back, is that... I'll just wait for him then.
Yeah, he should be able to...
Is that definitely there are very strong positives. There are very, very strong positives in Israel on the democracy question. And that they rate highly on the truth meter. Oh wait, went.
He was there and then he left.
So for the others out there, I'll just continue.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There is positives in Israel regarding democracy, and there's positives in Israel regarding there being no apartheid too. Definitely positives. I'm not denying that. I'll never deny that. And a lot of their policies, they're poster type policies. They should be very proud of them.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think the concept you brought up just before.
He's having trouble, all right.
Yeah, he just messaged me saying that he's getting an error message. So I told him to log out and switch browsers.
So what was his browser?
You know, I'm not entirely sure.
You are, okay.
He was using Firefox.
Firefox, okay.
Just hold on 1 second, okay, Roger? I'll be back in 1 second. He's gonna rejoin the room.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm back now. I'll just turn the camera off again.
Yeah, there
Can
you
you
are.
hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great, Luke.
Okay, I can hear both.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the problem was, Max.
No problem. I hear.
Okay, as I was saying, Luke,
Yes.
one question: why do Israelis outside the faith have to leave Israel to get married? You said any faith can marry anybody in Israel. Why do they have to leave the country to get married?
Can you maybe make your question a bit clearer, Roger? Because I'm not.
The rabbis will not accept a non-Jewish wedding in Israel. The rabbis will not acknowledge it. They're not allowed, outside the faith, they are not allowed to marry in Israel. You obviously do not know this. They have to go to Cyprus. They do it all the time. They travel for the weekend, get married, and come back to get around the rabbinical law.
Okay, well, I think, Roger, we're speaking of...
You can pass on that question if you like.
No, look, I'm happy to look at that. Look, I think we're speaking about two different laws here, okay? So one is religious law and the other is the law of the land. Israel is a secular state. In Judaism, there are different strands of Judaism, whether there's Orthodox to more ultra-Orthodox Judaism and everything else in between. And in Orthodox Judaism, Jewish people are encouraged to marry people who are also of the Jewish faith. So it would not be unusual for a rabbi to discourage somebody from marrying outside the faith, just as in Christianity and Islam, it would be unusual for a priest, for example, a Catholic priest, to encourage a practicing Catholic to marry somebody who was not Catholic. So that would not be unusual. I can't comment specifically on Cyprus. I haven't heard of that myself. But I know, for example, in America, that a very large percentage of Jewish people marry people who are non-Jewish, and although that may not be encouraged specifically by rabbis, the fact that so many Jewish people do marry somebody of a non-Jewish background should show one that among the Jewish people it is fairly well accepted, as it is in all ethnic groups.
Okay. Can I jump in here,
Yeah.
Max?
Yes, of course. I was just plugging in the computer. I'm sorry.
Okay, you answered the question, Luke. That's right. You answered the question,
Yes,
Luke. And the strongest argument you had there was the word discouraged. Now, it's not discouragement of the rabbis. It is the law. So you watered down what I've said. You didn't answer the question. You watered down what I said. And you answered the question, and it is right. It's a mishmash of religious law, secular law. There's no constitution in the country to sort this out. There will be no constitution in the country to sort this out. And it is a mishmash, and it is a disaster. It is a disaster. They promised the constitution in May 1948. They promised they'd have one in 3 months' time. There is still no constitution in Israel. They can't frame one. There's too many competing interests that they can't agree on. And if they tried to frame one, there'd be a civil war in the country. But going back to if that's not apartheid, can't get married in your own country, I don't know what is. But you don't need to go any further than one argument as to the argument of apartheid. There's only one argument you need to go to, and that is Jewish right of return is across the entire world. Palestinian right of return does not exist. You don't need to go past that argument to say there is an apartheid state. Now, having said that, there are good points in Israel that they should be proud of as far as their democracy, as far as voting. There are many very strong points in Israel, but there are many very strong negative points in Israel that point to them being an apartheid state. Now, you can argue they're not an apartheid state on the positives, that's fair enough, but it can't not cancel out the negatives. And those negatives are huge. They are insurmountable. Israel is an apartheid state inside Israel, inside the 49 borders. Outside of Israel, there's just no question about it, no question whatsoever. You do argue inside. I wouldn't argue inside that it is non-apartheid. You might. So the West Bank, you're not going to tell me, Luke, that apartheid doesn't exist there. Please do not tell me that. I'll lose all respect for you if you do.
Roger, can we have Luke come in here? Because I think he sees where you're coming from. Luke, do you want to respond?
Yes.
Okay. Well, look. Thank you. I have to address Roger's comment that Israel has no constitution. It is correct that in 1948 Israel did not have a constitution, but then the United Kingdom of Great Britain does not have a constitution either. However, Israel does have what is called the basic laws of Israel, and they have been accepted by the Israeli Supreme Court President Aaron Barak as being the state's constitution. And Israel does have a rich body of constitutional law, and the basic laws of Israel deal with government arrangements, human rights. So Israel does very much have a constitution, and I'm very pleased that, Roger, that you agree that Israel has many things to be proud of, including voting rights. And that, of course, is the starting place for a free and fair society. Israel really is, without a doubt, a light in a region which has a lot of darkness. And to deny that is irrational. And in terms of, you mentioned the Palestinian right of return, under the League of Nations, under the Balfour Declaration of 1917, of which my country, Australia, played a key role when the Australian Light Horse had their heroic charge at Beersheba. They liberated Beersheba and later, with British help, liberated Jerusalem from the Ottoman Empire. Under that war declaration, the state which was going to comprise the original Jewish state included Jordan, a much larger area than it is today that is being negotiated over. But Israel continues to hold out an olive branch to the Palestinians. Israel wants the Palestinians to go ahead. They've given them autonomy in Gaza. They've given them autonomy in other Palestinian areas where Palestinians have the right to vote and elect their own representatives in the Palestinian National Authority. But what of the 1 million Jews throughout the Middle East who were expelled from Arab countries after Israel became a Jewish state? What about their rights? What about their right of return to Morocco, to Egypt, to other countries, including Libya in the Middle East? We don't often hear of their right of return. And if we're speaking of a true right of return, what about their right of return to Jordan? Why is it that the Palestinians are treated as second-class citizens in all of the Middle Eastern countries outside Israel, whereas in Israel, Arab citizens have full voting rights and can be a minister in the Israeli government?
Go ahead, Roger.
Can I jump in, Max?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
You started that tirade about right of return of Palestinians. You danced all around the subject. You did not answer it. Palestinians do not have a right of return, and because you think that in San Remo, the Jews were promised the entire British mandate, including Jordan, you are simply wrong. San Remo spoke about a homeland for the Jews, not a statehood. They were not promised a state. They were promised a homeland where they could be residents and citizens under an Arab regime. To say anything else than that is a complete lie. Now, with San Remo, they were going to delay the decision of who gets what until after San Remo, as far as the Arab states were concerned. That was to be discussed after San Remo. So San Remo did not promise the land of the entire British mandate for the Jews. That is a complete lie. I am sorry, Mr. Luke M. I am very sorry to tell you that. San Remo was all about a homeland for the Jews, to have citizenship in an Arab state. And no one was to be denied rights. So, Mr. Luke, I'm sorry, you are wrong.
Luke, go ahead and respond.
Then you went on and talked about Israel being a shining light and all the rest. And you just danced around the subject. There is no right of return for the Palestinians. And that, at this point, is a fact.
Luke, can you go and respond?
Okay, you can go jump in next.
Yes, if I could jump in there. Look, Roger, you mentioned there the San Remo, and I assume you're referring to the San Remo conference of the 19th to the 26th of April 1920. And look, Roger, very simply, that occurred 3 years after the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration had already declared a Jewish homeland, a Jewish state, a future state.
Incorrect. You show me a Luke. You show me any documentation anywhere that mentions the word state. You will see homeland mentioned. You will see state mentioned when they're talking about the Arabs. They have never mentioned state in relation to the homeland ever, not once.
Look, I think we're arguing over semantics.
I just had to correct you. I'm sorry, I had to correct you.
Right, guys. So why don't we take the discussion?
No, it's not semantics. They talked about statehood for they specifically talked about statehood in the Pikes resolution and the Hussein Psycho Pikes. They talked about state. In the Hussein Manson, they talked about state.
You do acknowledge the word statehood there, right?
They were referring to the Arabs there.
Homeland,
yes, for the Arabs.
Homelands.
For the Arabs, mate.
England is a homeland.
No. Homeland statehood they never mentioned.
Homeland for the Jews.
Guys, Roger.
Now, Roger.
They never mentioned the word state. Dance around it all you want. Dance around it all you want.
Roger, just in terms of the video file and that's being recorded, just if we can both just speak separately. And Roger, I don't know are you speaking loudly or is maybe my volume is just up too high? 1 second. Roger, can you just say something quickly? Roger, are you there?
Roger,
Hello.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that's better. That's better.
Move on, Luke.
So guys, I'd like to bring up a new subject, which is the militarily harming of both Israeli and Palestinian civilians. I wanted to get your take on how the Israeli government should handle what they consider occupied territories and civilians living inside of those territories, how their military should either ease or I guess increase their military intervention. At the same time, I'd like to hear both of your opinions on how how Israel can protect its citizens better in terms of the Palestinians firing rockets into Israel. Roger, would you like to just address that topic?
How do I sound?
You sound better now. You're good.
How do I sound? Am I sounding okay?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
You sound okay, Roger.
Okay. I sort of have to guess the question you gave there, Max, because most of it was. But I think the question was.
Do you want me to repeat it, Roger?
I think the
Roger,
question was about civilians.
Being armed.
Was it about civilians?
Yeah, he was asking, what do you think about Israeli civilians being armed, and conversely, what do you think about Palestinian civilians being armed, and how should Israel respond to this?
Okay, in many countries, England and Australia, New Zealand, arms and civilians is against the law. Now, I suppose we're talking about the settlers being armed, and that's where the arming of civilians does occur in Israel. The settlers ride around the settlements on backs of trucks with guns and all the rest of it. I know this for a fact, but I know many that have done it. There's one person who's on Facebook, Ruben Kosovo. He does it. He'll freely admit that he will terrorise the neighbourhoods in trucks with arms, with guns. And the Palestinians, on the other hand, the best they do is arm themselves with what? Stones. So I don't consider the Palestinians armed whatsoever. I don't consider a stone an armament. But I consider guns, high caliber guns, armament. So it's a lopsided question. And the real problem about it is that the IDF, the Israeli government, honour the Israelis carrying arms and being vigilantes. They honour it. They don't stop it. They're very proud to see it continue. And what can you say? It's a lopsided situation. The settlements are illegal in the first place. Now, they might not say. They might look at the the laws in the that were framed in the I forget the name of it. Anyway, they might see the settlements as drip feeding Israelis across the border. They might not see it as anything against the law because it was not one massive repopulation of Israelis behind the 49 lines, across the 49 lines. They might argue that it wasn't a mass population and it's been drip fed. There's nearly 500,000 of them there. They're all illegal, even if they are drip fed across. The Israeli government subsidises them, and it's normally the struggling ones, the ones that aren't wealthy, that have to do it. And in those settlements, there's nothing but civilians being armed. And you don't get it with the Palestinians. They're armed with stones, if anything. So, totally illegal what Israel is doing, populating the West Bank. And it is a government initiative. There's no doubt about that. 500,000 of them there nearly. You might argue 350,000 or something, but so it's not an equal question. It's a question for the Jews. It's not a question for the Palestinians. So you can respond to that if you like.
Go ahead, Luke. Luke, are you there? Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hi, Max.
Hi, Michael, do you have headphones by any chance, Michael?
Luke's gone.
Yep.
Can you
One second.
Yeah. Roger, this is Michael, and he'd like to participate in the conversation. Is that okay with you?
Certainly.
Okay, great. 1 second.
Okay, I can see somebody. I'll turn my camera back on, shall I? And see how we go. It might not improve it, eh?
Yeah, you should. Oh, I hear you. I see you good.
Okay.
Hey, Luke, are you there?
Hello, Max, Roger, can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes, I hear you. Michael has just joined the conversation.
Hi again.
Michael has just joined the conversation. Michael, did you have something that you wanted to say after what Roger was saying?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything you said. I just
Can I
heard it.
just finish up what I was saying for Luke? I think Luke lost me. What I
Right.
was saying, Luke, is that
Yes.
that in the West Bank, there's the settlers that carry guns. The Palestinians, at best,
Yes,
carry
yes.
stones. So my point
I
was
heard that, yep.
basically is. Oh, okay, all right, okay. You might have just. Okay, I'll let you respond.
Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
Okay. Well, look. I think what we have to understand here is that national service is a big part of life in Israel, and we should not see it as unusual that Israeli civilians are armed, because Israelis in general often are armed, not all the time, but often are armed, and that is part of being in a country. Yeah, hello, I think somebody's joined us there, Chloe. Hello?
National service. National service is for the armed forces, I thought.
Yes, national service is for the armed forces, but the citizens of Israel in general do tend to have weapons. I mean, Israel's been hit by something like 11,000 rockets over the last 10 years, particularly in areas that border Gaza. And Israeli settlers, if you would call them that, living in the West Bank and other regions, it's not unusual for those people who are being shot at and having missiles and bombs hurled at them to have arms for their own safety.
Shot at with stones.
Yes. Shot at with bullets. If you just Google Hamas, you'll get an idea. Google images of Hamas members proudly wearing camouflage uniforms and carrying Kalashnikov AK-47 assault rifles.
You do know that Hamas is a Gazan phenomenon. You do know Hamas is not a West Bank phenomenon. Okay.
Well, but even Roger Fatah has engaged in terrorism, and this is well recognised by Australia and other Western governments.
West Bank is operated by Hamas members.
Not every day.
Not every day, because this infrastructure was quite damaged in previous operations. And if you can Google Yahya Ayash, the famous super terrorist that was operating from West Bank. He was responsible for many murdered Israelis that didn't do any harm to anyone. So Hamas operate from West Bank also, just as they operate from Gaza Strip.
Yeah, there may be a bit of crossover at times. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Oh, fair enough.
Yes. Now, if I can just jump in there, Chloe, I notice you've joined us. Did you have a question for Roger or myself? Can you hear us, Chloe? Okay. Did you have another question, Michael, for Roger or myself?
Not yet.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
Now, Michael, do you live in Israel? Do you live in Israel?
I live in Israel, in Beersheba. We were hit by like
Chloe,
60 rockets.
can you maybe turn off your camera?
Yes.
If you can get off your camera, Chloe, and we might be able to hear you. Did you have a question?
Watch and chat. Engage.
Okay. If you have a comment, you're welcome to participate.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you much clearer now. Can you hear us, Roger?
Chloe.
Yes, I can hear you all.
Me too. I hear you too.
Has Max left?
I think he must have left. So, Michael, do you live in Israel? Is that correct? Or?
I live in Beersheba, Israel. It's called the capital of the Negev.
Yes. So you'd be familiar with the story of the Australian light horse at Beersheba, 1917.
Australian light horse? No.
Light horse. There was a charge of Australian soldiers in 1917 against Ottomans at Beersheba.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not that good into history.
Anyway, how is life in? That's okay. How is life in Beersheba? Do you enjoy it there?
I would say that I'm a student here, so
How about we follow Max's last question?
Okay.
Go ahead.
You didn't respond to Max's last question.
Can you repeat the question for me, Roger? Because I struggled to hear everything.
He talked about the empowerment of civilians in the conflict.
Yes.
Whether civilians should enter the conflict was basically his question.
Look, I would always not want to see civilians enter any conflict, really. But unfortunately, with conflicts, sometimes civilians do tend to be dragged into conflicts. If we look at World War II, there was total warfare, the bombing of civilians on both sides of the English Channel. In World War I, you might say the war was fought more honourably. It was soldier against soldier rather than against civilians in most cases. In the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a British Lieutenant Colonel recently undertook a study of Israel's handling of Gaza and other flashpoints, and found that the Israeli Defense Forces in general had exercised far more restraint than any other comparable country facing similar challenges with terrorism. If you're being hit with 11,000 rockets, just to bring the story a bit closer to home, if France was raining 1,000 rockets over a 10-year period on England, you can imagine how urgently England would want to respond to France if France was bombing England. And you can just imagine, would England be expected? Israel does. And often the international media is more interested in the image, as painful as it is, of an injured Palestinian child. And we don't want to see any child or any civilian